of all the bad things that we do to children in school, none is worse than the report card. The report card is sort of like the atomic weapon of the educational establishment, sure to destroy life as we know it in a sure and certain way. Of course, report cards are all about what? They're all about a bunch of adults evaluating children. And this is what constantly goes on in the life of a school child. Every day, everything that he does, whether he's working on math, art, even phys ed, there's a teacher there doing what? Evaluating. Now, I don't know about you, but I certainly am not my most comfortable. I am certainly not doing my best when I have some big person looming over me, constantly assessing whether what I'm doing is good or not so good. Sometimes that kind of assessment is important. If you're working on a skill, it's really helpful to have someone who is a master at that, look at what you're doing and suggest improvements. But there's a difference between doing that occasionally and doing that every day. And every student knows that that is what's happening to him every day and constantly. And of course it finally arrives the day of judgment, which is the report card. And report cards, wherever you look at them, in primary and secondary school, contain one little line that is sure to spread as much misery as possible. And that is, it's certainly in the jurisdiction where I work, the class average is printed for everyone to see. So what that means is, half the students who receive the report card learn that they are what? Below average. Half the students are told, you're really not very good. Half the students are told, you're not meeting the standard, you're not quite up to snuff. Most people can do better than you. What a brilliant way to discourage students from learning. Take a class of anything and tell half the people you're below average. What a sure and certain way to destroy their desire to learn. You may wonder, well, why would report cards have something like that? And I'll tell you the truth about schools. We send our kids to school because they want them to become smart, to become educated, to be successful. And the Minister of Education will stand on his feet and proclaim how important it is that the schools mold and shape and improve young people to make them all that they can be. And that's true. Society needs smart, educated, skilled, confident people. But you know what else society needs? Society needs a whole group of people who regard themselves as losers. Who else is going to fix your meal at McDonald's? Who else is going to work at minimum wage jobs? Who else is going to fill all those lowly, dirty jobs that nobody wants to do, and today at a wage that nobody thinks is acceptable? People who have learned that they're capable, people who have developed a sense of confidence, are going to simply shun that kind of employment. And yet we're desperate for those kinds of people. In fact, in the worst recession that I've ever lived through, you can always find a job at your local hamburger joint. They always have a sign there out, help needed. Help is needed in some lowly, low-paying, unskilled job. That's who we have trouble producing. And that's part of what our schools are meant to do, and they do a darn good job of it. Producing a group of men and women who regard themselves as losers. We're talking about, of course, people who for year after year after year have received report cards telling them they're below average. What happens to a boy or a girl who has spent hours and then years in an institution that says, you're below average. You're below average in what our society regards as the most important thing for people of your age, schooling. And so these boys and girls become men and women who develop an attitude of, I'm a loser. I don't deserve what other people have because, well, I haven't been able to attain what they have in school.
Right.
It is a vicious kind of system. It is a cruel kind of system, and it has nothing to do with education. It has nothing to do with promoting learning. The purpose of going to school in our present educational system is not to become educated. It is instead to stack up a pile of degrees that will entitle you to what? To a fancy job, to a bigger share of the economic pie. And so we have a system in which those who are below average grow discouraged because they're told you're not very good at learning and quit learning. And we tell the people who are good at schooling that they will be able to turn this into money, turn this into a good job. Work hard at school if you want to be successful. Not work hard at school because you want to be educated. No, work hard at school because you want to be successful. And so the brightest students become fans not of education, not of expanding their minds. They become fans of advancing materially and economically in life. The net effect is school destroys an interest in education amongst those who don't do well, and it destroys an interest in education among those who do well. In fact, school is probably most effective at what? At destroying the interest of young people in education. Think of this. The day the kids arrive in school, they are all anxious to do what? They are all anxious to learn. You should see these little ones coming into kindergarten. They really do. They really want to learn. And in fact, they've already learned a great deal. They've learned a whole language. 8 years later, by the end of grade school, they will all know one thing, and that is they're not interested in learning. Books? Oh no. School? Boring. The greatest and happiest day of their life each year then becomes the last day of school. The day that they have to stop learning. A bizarre system that we would do this. That we would take a group of anxious learners, subject them to everything that school entails, and turn them into people who are not only disinterested in learning, but actually are hostile to the idea of learning. One of the ways that school discourages learning is through the curriculum. Child shows up in any time in grade school, based on his age, he's in a certain grade. Because he's in that grade, he gets delivered to him a stack of textbooks, maybe AI, geography, history, math, spelling, all kinds of things that the educators have decided they ought to learn. Now, I don't know about you, but I have very little interest, generally speaking, in doing things that other people have forced me to do. That's a pretty sure way for me to get disinterested in something, is to be forced to do it. And yet that's exactly what we do with students. We don't do it just a little bit. We do it hour after hour, day after day, year after year. This is what you will learn now, this is what you will learn next, and this is what you will learn after your lunch break. Can anybody be surprised that students become totally disinterested, not just in schooling, but in learning?